Hello, I'm Liz Lumley of Finextra, and today I'm speaking to Fiona Hamilton of Volante, and we're going to talk a little bit about challenges in the payment space. So what are some of the challenges that you're seeing from your customers currently?
As Volante, we're in a pretty good situation to actually understand the challenges in the payments industry because A, we have customers involved in the payment transaction process, both from a corporate to bank and an interbank perspective in all the continents of the world, apart from Antarctica where there isn't a lot of requirements. In addition to the feedback that we constantly have from our customers, and we constantly solicit, we're also members of a number of payments-related standards bodies, such as CGI and EBA, etc. And broadly speaking, we see challenges being broken down into three areas. The challenges our customers have with regard to adopting new standards or migrating away from existing legacy standards. The challenges relating to the adoption of new technology, which people are taking advantage of at the same time to largely introduce flexibility and reduce costs, and also the overarching business challenges which people are having in relation not just to standards, of course, but lots of things like regulatory change.
So that's great. I'd really like to drill down on those 3 points that you made. Why don't we look first at standards migration? What are some of the challenges associated with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the best place to start there is that ISO 20022, and forgive me for rambling on about a standard that people have been going on about for the last decade, but we really do see some momentum actually quite a lot of momentum in the adoption of ISO 20022. Now, some of that has obviously been driven by the adoption of SEPA within the Eurozone, but I think on a more global basis we're seeing an increasing amount of ACHs that are actually migrating to ISO 20022. Other regulatory reform in terms of transaction reporting within payments and financial investigations. Actually, for example, the Finnish market is about to adopt an ISO 20022 based standard in that particular area. What we see is the challenge of actually taking old legacy formats and migrating to new formats which are absolutely 100% ISO 20022 within that area. Obviously all of those things people want to be done at the lowest possible cost, and therefore it's the flexibility of being able to take an old standard and migrate to a new standard or adopt a brand new standard from scratch without having to massively impact their originating payment standards.
Of course, since we talked about standards, we should move into technical issues. What are some of the issues you're seeing from a technical standpoint?
So whilst you have the challenges of actually adopting new technology in terms of the standards themselves, the actual technology which people are using to implement that alongside the standards is things like moving away from legacy mainframe architectures to service-oriented architecture, cloud-based architectures, which again have been around for some time, especially in other industries, but really it's only in the last 12 months or so that we've seen initiatives like SAP's FSN coming to market, which I think is adding a lot of weight to. There are just different ways of implementing these new standards, but adopting different technologies which will also give you contingent benefit in terms of cost reduction, ease of onboarding clients, etc.
I'm glad you mentioned client onboarding because that's a huge issue both on the bank side and the corporate side. What are some of the big challenges you're seeing there?
I think what we see usually it's not the connectivity. I mean, you know, most banks can offer the connectivity to their clients out of the box. The issue is that every client has a slightly different view of what a payment is. You might think that it's, you know, one of the more simple instruments, but when you come down to the nitty-gritty of the actual components that make up those payments, the bank will always have a slightly different view than the corporate. And typically the bank is trying to impose their view of how they represent a payment on all of their corporates, whereas the corporate has a lot of banks in a lot of different countries. They want to standardise on theirs. So the challenges are that you've got a push me, pull you kind of situation, which again, there are some initiatives I don't wish to harp on about the FSN, but implementing canonical models in the middle whereby neither party has to really care the exact details of the codification of the payment information. I think we see as something that's going to be adopted more and more, because it does make that challenge of onboarding a customer much easier.
So we talked a bit about the payments world, but what about the cards space? Are you seeing similar challenges from people that work in the card space?
Absolutely. In the card space, things like the SEPA cards framework, which the EPC are obviously working on as we speak, are going to be introducing 20022 type concepts into what is historically an ISO 8583. Sorry to use lots of ISO buzzwords, but ISO 8583 utterly dominates cards, whether that's point of sale, ATM, credit cards, debit cards, etc. And that has a data dictionary approach, as does ISO 20022, but the two are so far away from each other in terms of syntax, the way that they self-describe themselves, etc. There are a lot of challenges for the card processors, the payment services providers, to actually take what is essentially, in every single case, a different type of message structure, and to then help their customers on board to that standard. So we see helping the customers be able to onboard by coming up with flexible functionality that allows them to either transform from the customer's format into that 8583, and then in the future 20022 format is going to save them a lot of time and effort.